Let's get some more coaches in here. Welcome into Buckeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by as always. Pull up and get comfortable. And don't forget to hit the like button. Also subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. And we are starting something new this week. Of course, we're headed into the off season and a lot of time to talk and a lot of time to talk to all of you. So in addition to those comments and questions, and we appreciate your contributions, folks, that keeps us going. That for the last 15 minutes, we're going to open it up to calls. If we get some contributions in, we're going to set it at $100. And if you'd like to talk to Tony, Steve, and even me, then you can do that. Again, we're looking for some contributions from you. Steve shows up every week. Tony shows up every week, and they are slammed with other responsibilities. So we so much appreciate 304 shows. Wow. If I do my math right, we're over 6 years in that range with these two on board. Tony, Steve, how you guys doing?
Doing well.
Excellent. You can catch Tony's work at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also, Buckeye Weekly's the podcast. Steve, of course, senior Big Ten writer, Big Ten senior writer, one of those two things at Bucknuts 247 Sports. It's a lofty title, I know that.
Just don't call me late for dinner. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. Can't do that. Well, Tony, the defensive coordinator position is one that's still open, still out there. And there seems to be a new name that pops up every few days. And the latest that I see all over the place is one Matt Patricia, who spent most of his career, not that I'm an expert on his career, because I know him primarily from his days with the Lions and the Patriots, but has been an NFL guy.
Yeah, for basically ever, and was reported to have interviewed for a position on Ryan Day's staff. People throwing defensive coordinator and things like that. I'm going to assume it would be a co-defensive coordinator for whomever comes in. And you look at his Wikipedia page. The last time he was in college was 2001 through 2003, like all of us basically, as a grad assistant. And has been with the Patriots for most of that time until the head coach stint with the Lions. But this one is you hear rumors that, or you hear not just rumors. People will say his name, and then like I had somebody in the NFL say, we're hearing that it's Matt Patricia, and then you'll have other people saying that it's definitely not Matt Patricia. And the same thing with the Randy Bates thing. It's like you hear his name come up, and then you hear others like, no, it's not him. And then you also have some accounts on Twitter who will tell you that it's definitely this guy. And then when it's not, they will delete some tweets, and then they'll say it's definitely this guy, so they can claim that they're first. But it's still, we'll see. Ryan Day said last week that he'd have everything announced this week. So I'm still waiting. Ohio State has not confirmed anything. I don't even think they've confirmed Jim Knowles has left yet. So maybe I know Jim Knowles has already been doing interviews at Penn State. Maybe when we get to talk to Ohio State coaches finally maybe this week, or at least one of them, who knows who's going to show up at this point. It could be anybody.
Yeah, we're all hearing the same things. And it was reported that Matt Patricia met with Ryan Day. I think one of the knocks on Matt Patricia is he may suffer from the Charlie Weiss syndrome, in that, don't you know who I am? I did all this with the Patriots. They did win 2 Super Bowls during his 6-year stay as the defensive coordinator before he jumped off to become the head coach with the Detroit Lions. And, I don't need to go and dig up old reports from the Detroit Free Press or anything else. It's right on his Wikipedia page that he didn't get along very well with the players, had some abrasive moments with some of his assistant coaches and so on. And so I think to do due diligence on this matter, I think that you have to sit him down in a room with Larry Johnson, James Laurinaitis, Tim Walton, Matt Guerrieri, who've been, knocking it out of the park, working for Jim Knowles here in recent years, and find out whether this guy can work and play well with others. I think that's the first thing that I think you have to solve and settle. You don't bring turmoil into your operation. And, everybody says the guy's a defensive guru, as our friend Tim May would say, but is it going to upset the harmony of what's been a pretty good staff organization? And so I guess you kind of have to look at it that way. And I presume that's what, if any meetings on campus were about, was to get everybody on the same page. And if we do this, how would this look, and what, who's going to answer to who, and how would this go, and, that type of thing. So Ohio State's been built personnel wise to run a 4-2-5 defense. Is that what Matt Patricia thinks is the best to go up against the college offenses? Ohio State just won the national championship with a pretty good 4-2-5 defense. So I can't imagine why Ryan Day would want to switch out of that at this point.
It is interesting because Patricia's been an odd front guy, I believe, most of his career. And Ryan Day has talked about, we're going to go do more multiple things on the defensive line, but couldn't really necessarily do it until all of those guys were gone last year. But you still have Larry Johnson around, who's a 4-down guy, and you wonder, like, how would that marriage work? But the same thing was said with Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson, and people would say it didn't work. They still won, and they still had a really good defense these last 2 years, and even that first year was better than the previous year. But with as much difficulty as there was on the staff, wouldn't you want to bring in somebody that is aligned with everybody? And for a guy like Matt Patricia, maybe he's willing to change at this point. But I know all of the New England Patriots, like, who is the most successful Bill Belichick branch? Because there haven't, like, as head coaches, we could say, like, it just hasn't really worked out for those guys. Coordinator, I think he's been fine. But when you're the defensive coordinator for Bill Belichick, it's like being the offensive coordinator for Ryan Day. You're not going to get nearly the amount of credit as maybe somebody else would for being a defensive coordinator for a different team other than Bill Belichick. So, we'll see if it's him or not. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully something happens here in the next day or two, because it'd be nice to talk to these guys and get an idea of what the next step is in the process and what they're looking like.
Doug, we appreciate you being here. Yes, this is the all-star team. I would be the all-star utility player, maybe. So sometimes in the formulation of a coaching staff, and certainly this is not a complete reset, it's a new defensive coordinator, it's an in-house offensive coordinator promotion, it's a new offensive line coach. So there's some changes, but nothing close to the overhaul that a few teams across the country have to go through. But sometimes one hire will impact the other in regards to, because we went this direction, we went youth and inexperience, or we went older, or we did whatever, this is going to impact over here our pool of candidates. I don't necessarily see anything that's been done to date as impacting this hire. Of course, Brian Hartline's inexperienced as an offensive coordinator, but they bring in Tyler Bowen as an experienced play caller to help. And of course, you got Ryan Day as the head coach. Am I missing something in regards to any type of impact one way or the other?
No, I don't feel or sense that it has to be anybody who fits in any kind of a certain box, anybody who excels as a line coach, a linebackers coach, a secondary coach. I don't think it really matters experience-wise, any of that. I think what matters is fit. That's what matters at Ohio State. And it's all about the culture and getting everybody on the same page and putting a common sense product out there. Once they got Jim Knowles out of his ideas, of we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way. No, Jim, just keep the play in front of you. Let them fail themselves. You didn't see Ohio State taking a ton of risks defensively in these big games that they won. And lo and behold, guess what? It was good enough to get it done. So To me, I don't want to say, like a Geico commercial is simple enough a caveman could do it, but I think that they are just looking for somebody who's competent, who's the right fit culture-wise for this staff and this program. I think that's all you really need at the end of the day, and you've got enough expertise in the room with all those guys. They're all veterans. Laurinaitis isn't, but he's been around football now for 20 years at the highest level. So I look at it that just get somebody who will mesh with the group and get back to winning football.
Yeah, and Jim Knowles didn't have a position, so like it doesn't necessarily they don't need to fill the vacancy of whatever position he was coaching. But with Patricia, he's been all over the place and defensive line. And the interesting thing is the guys that you hear about, including like Joe Cullen, have all been like defensive line type guys, and what that would mean for Larry Johnson, whether it's like not immediate, but eventually, when you do retire, there's an opportunity for somebody to step in. But it's been an interesting thing because all of these guys that you hear about, it's like, I don't know that it blows anybody away. It's certainly not the duck hunt that Ryan Day went out on for Jim Knowles and getting that guy, because I believe he thinks he's already got that guy on staff with Matt Guerreri, and now you're just supplementing something closer to the line of scrimmage for a co-coordinator.
Got our Ohio State, Michigan, everything program debate show that's coming up next Monday. The long anticipation will finally reach a summit, and we will deliver that to all of you, taking your calls. As Michigan fans, I will represent the Buckeyes. I will do a bit of a stretch there, get into a different frame of mind, a completely different person, just to do my best to represent Buckeye Nation against the Michigan callers. And it's going to be a fun time. And I will be here as long as people call and debate anything regarding program history on the field. I'm not debating helmets or not debating fight songs, whatever. You can say whatever you want about it. It's too subjective. No. Hard and fast, nuts and bolts, football. That's what we're talking about.
Mark, are you going to be diving into the deep history, like pre-2021, or are we just talking about modern history, the modern times that Michigan fans like to talk about?
We'll of course focus on the modern era, because so much has changed on the field since 2019 that I don't think that's too relevant. What happened between 2000 and 2019? I think we should probably disregard that as just an outdated age of college football. Sure.
That's all black and white.
Yeah. So that should be a good time, folks. Next Monday, February 17th, 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can keep it right here. We will simulcast right here. Also, we would love to take your calls. So we decided to start taking your calls throughout the off season. We will do that at the end of the show if we reach our mark. So kick us into bonus time, and Yakov gets us started with a little chip in here. Thank you so much for that, Yakov. Your Mount Rushmore of Ohio State coaches.
Here's an interesting thing, because you've got now 5 Ohio State coaches who have won national titles, and Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day. And the thing is, Paul Brown should be on any football Mount Rushmore, that you have. However, he only coached for 3 years at Ohio State.
Yeah, short.
So like we were having this discussion. Me and Tim May and Letterman Row guys at one of the bowl games, and Tim's like, "How can you take Paul Brown off of this thing?" And I'm kind of with him, but
with
3 years.
Just and then put in the mustache for Day, and
he was at Ohio State for 3 years, and then had to go deal with the war, but then decided not to come back to Ohio State for like they should have taken him off the Mount Rushmore once he said no to Ohio State when he was supposed to come back, and he went to to the Cleveland football franchise instead. They should have been chiseling right there. Put on, I don't know, Carol Widows or Fred Bixler or whoever that ended up failing after him.
There were some good. There were some good ones before Woody. Francis Schmidt was pretty big time, and so was I think John Wills maybe was big there in the early 1900s. But I think it's pretty cut and dried. Woody Hayes, and then the three last guys I think are the four that I would put up there, and just because they put or had this program at an entirely different level than it was, at any other point. So to me, even Paul Brown, like he won it, and the next year they were like, I don't know, 4-5 or something stupid. Although, it was during the war too, so there were guys coming and going, kind of like now. They're back in the 40s, they were bemoaning the transient nature of college football because guys were going off to war, and they were letting 5th and 6th year guys play who came back from the war and whatever. So, yeah, it was a different time, and it was their version of the war was their version of the transfer portal.
Yeah, slightly different obligations back then.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yes, 18-year-olds landing on beaches in Normandy. So,
yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, it's not a lifetime achievement award. So that's where I agree with you two in regards to Paul Brown. We cannot view Paul Brown as Paul Brown, football legend, icon beyond belief, that revolutionized the NFL game, won NFL championships, All-American Conference championships before the NFL entry with the Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals owner, the whole deal. No, Ohio State head coach for 3 years, won a national championship. Excellent. 2 other marginal seasons, and just a 3-year run. So it is a very recent role for Ohio State football since 1951, Woody Hayes.
I think looking at the winning percentage and just doing some quick math in my head and also on my phone, Ryan Day would have to win his next 23 games in a row to surpass Urban Meyer's Ohio State winning percentage, which is pretty insane considering, Urban Meyer was 73-9, or this says 83-9. And Ryan Day currently 70-10. So he would have to win quite a few more games in a row just to get past that 902 winning percentage. Ryan Day currently with the lowly 875 winning percentage as Ohio State's head coach, which is pretty crazy considering how good both of them have been, and certainly how good Jim Tressel has been. And I know we'll probably talk about Jim Tressel in a bit. But yeah, I think those 4 pretty cut and dry, got the titles, got the winning percentage. Yeah,
because if Ryan Day's 70-10, wins 23 straight, that's 93-10. That seems pretty equivalent if you can do the rough math to 83-9, because you got to win another 10 games to offset the 1 loss to get you past in the winning percentage. That is pretty ridiculous. Now, Urban got off to a great start at 24-0 to kind of pad that, and but yeah, that's pretty crazy. And it's going to be tough for Day to keep up with Urban Meyer all time. I think the number is 187-32. Lost 32 games in his coaching career.
It's absurd.
Not counting the Jaguars. Yes,
not counting. That slightly dents the winning percentage.
But yeah, good call. 187-32. 12-3 in bowl games.
Yeah, and still, I see lists of the greatest college head coaches of all time where he's like 18th or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
that's like the opposite of recency bias or whatever. It's like, a lot of times with polls, it's like the guys who have been the most recent will be towards the top. Him being so recent, and I think that the Jacksonville thing is a thing. Leaving Florida how he did is a thing, and you still have Florida fans don't even like him. So it's like he's never really been embraced I think in circles the way a lot of other great head coaches of all time have been.
It's like sports writers back in the day snubbing Ted Williams and trying to keep him out of the Hall of Fame for a few years just to teach him a lesson, even though he's arguably the greatest hitter of all time. Oh, let's teach him a lesson. We didn't like him.
Chris Carter forever wasn't a Pro Football Hall of Famer because no writers would vouch for him, and you know, because they didn't like the way they were treated by him.
David Greenshield, of course. I alluded to this. The most influential coach of all time. My argument goes to Tom Landry, but we will have that another day. But yes, he certainly could take the top spot there.
We need John Facenda to narrate it.
Yes.
It's kind of like, you know,
dead.
Who is more influential, the guy who invents the wheel or the guy that puts the wheel in the car? You know, it's like they're all gigantically influential on how we got to the place that we're at.
For sure. Well, Jim Tressel certainly put his stamp on this program, and many would argue that he did so before anybody even stepped on the football field when he stepped on the basketball court at St. John's Arena, because that just marked a resounding change in Ohio State football and its rivalry with Michigan. And now Jim Tressel possibly called upon to serve his state as lieutenant governor. He's been nominated by Mike DeWine. I don't know if this is just a process. Of course, he's got to be passed by the House and the Senate, but I don't know if that's just a formality or there are other possible candidates out there. But I know little about the job. I actually did look up, and it pretty much just falls in line as a vice president type position where you're the next in line, and you're also appointed by the governor to fill any committees or anything that basically he doesn't want to get involved in. And there you go. And certainly Jim Tressel and everything I saw that Mike DeWine had to say about him falls in line with everything we know about the man in regards to him being, you know, practically a senator as a football coach on the sideline is how he was viewed.
Yeah. Well, obviously his experience as the university president at Youngstown State put him in a position where he had to be involved in state politics to some degree because of higher education funding and lobbying the state legislature for as much funding as you know the colleges could get. He is 73 years old. This appointment will last through the end of the calendar year in 2026. That's when DeWine's term as the governor will end, and there'll be a new governor that takes over in January of 2027. And I don't know if Tressel has any visions of running for that job afterward. I mean, he'd be 75 when he takes the job, and you know, potentially 83 when he would leave it after 2 terms, 4 years each. I know Vivek Ramaswamy has kind of thrown his hat into the ring to be the next governor, and I think he would be a pretty good candidate for the Republicans to put up there. Not to delve too far off the beaten path here and talk politics, not endorsing anybody certainly, but I think that Tressel's kind of the right guy at the right time for Ohio, and he'll get to work on trying to solve today's problems today, and you know, maybe not worry so much about looking, you know, what's my next job, like a lot of these bleeps do when they get into this thing. It's you know, okay, I'm this now, you know, how can I jump off to be that? Even Vivek, you just wonder, you know, after 2 years as the governor, is he going to run for president in 2028? So you know, it is interesting stuff to talk about and think about, but I don't think you have any of that with Tressel. He's not a career politician, doesn't view himself as a career politician. And so I think it's a neat thing that somebody who has the support of most of the state of Ohio is now in the State House, providing a common sense view of the world to these politicians who live in their own fantasy world, it feels like a lot of times. And, it's a Republican-controlled General Assembly, both houses in the state of Ohio. So I think this is going to be a rubber stamp type thing, probably almost unanimous vote. Even the Democrats would be hard-pressed to vote against Tressel for this.
Yeah, I think he'd be a fantastic candidate for governor in 2 years because he actually cares about people, and so that makes him the anti-politician.
I agree. I agree 100%. I just question the timing. 75 is, like was it Wilford Brimley said?
Steve, what world are we living in right now? 75 is. It's
I know. Like you don't start a career at your age, son. You retire.
But he doesn't care about. Well, I don't think he cares about power or himself. So, like, keep him in office as long as he's willing to do it, because that's a fresh change from anything we've seen in this country for about 100 years. So, keep him in there and let him go for it. And this experience at Youngstown State and just dealing with education, dealing with people, and having people to answer to, and being in charge of people, I think, does that qualify him to be governor? Like, qualifications don't count anymore. I think we all realize that. It's, can you get into office and can you keep it? And he can certainly get into office, and he could probably keep it as long as he wants. I'm guessing no Republicans want to see him in the battle, and certainly no Democrats want to see him in the battle if he does decide in like a year. It's like, you know what? I'd kind of like to stretch out a little bit and see what this office is like. And so, no, certainly, like, Vivek Ramaswamy doesn't want to be battling Jim Tressel in a primary or anything like that. And nobody wants to be dealing with Jim Tressel in any kind of Ohio ballot.
That would be a heck of a debate and campaign between those two.
Look, and I shouldn't even say this. Like, I want to hear Jim Tressel come out and say, "Hey, why are you against, like, feeding children and, like, school lunches?" And have him come out and have to, like, really put himself out there, because as a coach, you don't necessarily do that. You never really put your feelings out there. Like, Urban Meyer endorsed John Kasich one year, but if you're going to get into it, you're going to get in the weeds, then you're going to be saying stuff that a lot of people are going to be looking at you like, I didn't know that you were like that. Or I'm like, finally somebody's saying what I want him to say. Like, you're going to have to put your thoughts out there. And who knows if you want to do that and really change the part of the legacy that everybody loves.
I think he'd be, if he and Vivek having a debate for the governor's job would be must-see TV. My young friend here has got a lot of knowledge, but I feel like my life experience and growing up, here in Berea, Ohio, and Dad, coached the football games, and we didn't have a whole lot, and on and on and on. My young friend here is full of energy, I'm sure.
Look, our family, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale like Mr. Ramaswamy. I was in Ohio helping my father tape ankles on the football field.
Yeah, they're two very different personalities and people from not that Jim Tressel is exactly from the backwoods by any stretch, but he's not a slickster, a salesman, not a politician per se. But he can play the role well enough to serve both camps and be accepted by everyone.
That's the Youngstown in him that has you completely fooled, Mark.
Okay.
he can spin all of the plates and all of the wheels and do all of that. But I think he is a legitimately good person, and I think we can use more of those.
We certainly can. I'm just curious, has Jim Tressel made any endorsements? So Steve just noted Urban Meyer and John Kasich with to cement himself as a particular affiliated with a party? Are we just making an assumption there based on his stance on policy?
I think they found out that he has donated money to candidates before, with most of it going to Republican candidates, I believe. And that's all we really know. I don't think he's ever, declared anything. So yeah, I think that's kind of where he's at.
Aaron, thank you for chiming in here. Is this a political show now? First of all, nobody has made any endorsement for anyone, nor have they made an endorsement of policy or anything. And we've done 304 shows for a minimum of 60 minutes per show. Do the math. And we talked about an Ohio State legend who's been nominated for lieutenant governor. That's all we're talking about. I don't know. There's a football show out there that's as football as this show and other shows that we do here. We talk football all the time. I can certainly go off on politics if you would like at some other place, but no, we
save it for the calls
here. That's what we do. What's that, Tony?
Only other thing I would add is Ohio State would love to have an advocate in the State House like Jim Tressel, higher education, Youngstown State, Akron, Miami. He's worked at all these places, and he can attest to what higher education in the state of Ohio means. And I think that's a great thing. I think anybody on the show here today, beyond Ohio State football and athletics, you've got to be a believer in higher education. And I think to have an advocate like him in the State House who can break a tie, not in the chamber, the split vote. I'm saying in a debate behind closed doors, they're trying to figure out what should we do. He's going to come down on the side of, hey, let's take a look at it from this angle. And I think that's a good thing for Ohio State.
We are premiering a show today, the College Football Show. I will take your calls. It'll be about the news of the day, whatever ratings and rankings I want to unveil, guess, and your calls. That's going to be Monday through Friday starting today. So we just figured that out. And when I say we, I speak like the royal family, meaning me here, like in the last, 12 hours. Sure, let's do a show every day. Let's make it 4:00. We can duck and dive and dodge, and we're flexible, adaptable here at the Voice of College Football. No bureaucracy. We want to do a show. We start today. Here we go. So give me a call today at 4 p.m. Eastern.
Mark, when do you find the the downtime? Because college football is a flat circle, or it's a round calendar. It's always some sort of a season. But I think right around maybe June is when the month of June is you're just waiting for the magazines to come out at that point. And that way then you'll have something else. Even now, spring football Hawaii has already started spring football. So feel free to talk about that. But we're really close to spring football. Ohio State has released their spring schedule, so we finally know about that. But is June the slowest time, even though that's when things are starting to ramp up in terms of anticipation for the season? Because summer's here, so it's nice.
Yeah, in terms of hard news, it's end of spring practice, pretty much the final Saturday of April. So you've got May, you've got June, you've got some small little things going on, like the SEC coaches get together in Destin every Memorial Day weekend. That conference gets together more than the rest of them combined. But other than that, yeah, a lot of then you dive into schedules and player ratings and rankings and do all that fun stuff that I like to do because there's little news. But yes, that is the downtime.
Still got to feed the beast. Still got to feed the beast.
Yes, still got to feed me. Yeah. So got to generate revenue regardless of what the college football calendar says. So absolutely. Well, we appreciate everyone being here. We got Doug on the board here. Thank you so much. Any word on Tim Drevno?
No word that he's no longer at Ohio State. As far as I know, he's still there. He still shows up on the people finder on the OSU's website. So I think him being part of the offensive staff is still a good thing. I think the Tyler Bowen thing, everybody talks about what a great recruiter he is, and there's concern, people have concern that he hasn't coached offensive line since 2017. I think you can take a good coach and have him coach any position, and that position is going to be okay because he's going to be focused on it, know what he's looking for, and hold players accountable. And so having If it is Bowen, and then you have him with Drevno, and they'll still bring in another offensive line guy as part of this as well. Like, so I think keeping Tim Drevno is good. I think having him where he is better than having him as the O-line coach, because he was not necessarily a great recruiter, but I think you can go ahead and give him some of that credit for the offensive line last year. Give Justin Fry as much credit as you want for sure, because whoever worked with the offensive line last year, Mike Solani as well, they all did a fantastic job being able to do what they did with that, starting 9 different players over the course of a season.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, I have to say. And Tim was very much a part of the whole process there with the offensive line, along with Mike Solini, and certainly the departed coach as well, the offensive line coach who went on to the NFL. So, yeah, I think it's all going to work out very well, and we'll just have to see how it all shakes out.
So this is not just a one-time deal, but moving forward through the offseason, we will take your calls and push this thing into overtime, as Dan Patrick once used to say, but I missed my opportunity to do my Dan Patrick impersonation there. But yes, overtime with the call-in show. So we will take your calls if you would so like, moving through the offseason. And one note that I should have made when we were talking coaches is that I don't know if Buckeye Nation is aware, speaking of the statistics all time, but Kirk Ferentz, I believe, only needs 1 win to tie Woody Hayes' Big Ten record for victories, and obviously 2 to surpass him. At which time, of course, I'll roll out the winning percentage, because that's just slightly different. just so he's got a few more losses, maybe like 150 or something like that. But Kirk Ferentz, there was much speculation that he would hang him up after this season, but they were expecting more than 8 wins to get him the Big Ten record.
Mm-hmm. Looking, Ferentz has 128 wins in the Big Ten. I'm still showing Woody with like 152 at Ohio State.
So I believe this is wins by a Big Ten coach overall.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So by any Big Ten coach.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Stay in the Big Ten.
Yes.
The overall number of wins.
Woody's at 205 and Kirk Ferentz is at 204. Good call. 124 losses for Ferentz, slightly fewer for Woody, 61. So twice as many losses for Ferentz, but good on him. I mean, he's been the head coach since what, 1999? Like that's crazy.
Yeah, good long time.
And has had some of the same assistant coaches for a very, very long time as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely, he has. And that's why they've been so good on defense and special teams. And maybe they're fixing things on offense. They were up to like number 95 in offense this year. They were extraordinary.
Slow down.
Explosion.
I'm telling you.
Simmer down now.
If nobody noticed.
A lot of overs.
Yes. There were a lot of 17-point games out of that offense this year. It's pretty
What was their bowl game?
They lost 23-20 to Mizzou.
I don't know if that went under. I don't know if that went under or not, but yeah.
Might have been 27-24. Now that's definitely an over.
They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, I believe.
Yeah, they had a lead.
Yeah.
And they knew, I think, coming into the season, the offense was going to have to score more since Cooper DeJean was off to the NFL and they were missing their best offensive weapon.
At which this would be a good conversation. I'll say one other thing just to kind of piggyback on what your projection there was with the Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day needing to go 23-0. So if Woody Hayes comes back to coaching, if he goes 0-60, what, 0-63, then Kirk Ferentz has the all-time percentage record. Okay.
Good Lord.
But Saw the Cooper DeJean touchdown, of course, everyone, the pick six that broke open the game.
He's a pioneer.
I'm sorry, what's that?
He is a pioneer.
He's a pioneer. He's a pioneer in this sort as well. So I thought, who was the last Iowa player to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl? And I thought, well, George Kittle would be a good candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Clark would be a good candidate. No, neither one
Merton
of those
Hanks
guys scored a touchdown. Tim Dwight appears to be the only Iowa player prior to Cooper DeJean ever. So what do we have for the Buckeyes? We got Eddie George, I believe, scored a touchdown against the Rams. I would have to double check that. He did have a 100-yard game or something very close to it, like 95, 105, something like that. I'll have to double check Eddie George. And then, of course, Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, Santonio Holmes with that catch was
meaningless garbage time touchdown for him. But, yeah.
Well, and we know like Garrett Wilson will never score one unless he leaves the Jets. Like there are some players who aren't eligible to play in the Super Bowl or let alone score in the Super Bowl, and he of course is one of them.
Yeah. Tom Maddie.
Probably.
Buckeye, correct? Super Bowl III, I believe he scored the Colts touchdown. He also had 116 yards on 11 carries. Ask me anything about the first 40 Super Bowls or so. That might be my sweet spot.
Eddie George had 2 touchdowns, a 1-yard run and a 2-yard run.
All right. How many yards? I'm going 28 for 95.
95 yards, 35 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. So over 100 offense.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I could sift through every one of these games, all 59 of them, to count out the Buckeyes. I'm trying to think from skill positions, what they'd be, who they would be.
Can you check Tom Maddie with a Super Bowl touchdown? The Colts only scored 1 touchdown in the game, but I think he had it. And he had what stood as the best yards per carry average in a Super Bowl. It may still stand.
Is that Super Bowl III is the one we're looking at?
Yeah.
Let's just see.
Any other Buckeyes? Tony, anybody else? Of course, Orlando Pace won, but they didn't give him the ball.
No.
Tom Maddie did not score a touchdown in that game. It was Matt Snell for New York and Jerry Hill on a 1-yard run for Baltimore.
Okay.
The world-renowned Jerry Hill.
Yes.
Final statistics. Joe Namath was 17 of 28.
208.
206.
206.
206. Snell.
No touchdowns, no interceptions.
Or no, we're talking about Tom Maddie.
11 for 116.
Yes, 11 for 116 and also caught 2 passes for 30 yards. So that was good.
I didn't know the 2 for 30.
So he's a quarterback and he's also catching passes. Like football back in the day was outrageous.
Well, no, he was playing running back.
He was a running back.
There was 11 rushes for 16 yards or whatever.
11 for 116.
Oh, 160. Okay.
Earl Morrill started and Johnny Unitas came on in the 4th quarter. And Bubba Smith still claims to this day that game was fixed, that Earl Morrill was paid off to throw picks.
He threw 3 interceptions. Yeah. Amazing.
And missed a lot of wide open guys. Jimmy Orr, there's the famous NFL films like waving his arm in the end zone. He's wide open.
Chris Carter never played in a Super Bowl, did he?
No, because they lost to at the Falcons that year with Jamal Anderson when they should have.
The Giants 2 years later.
About
NFC championship.
Michael Jenkins with the Falcons. Did he score in the when they were there? Or was
I doubt it. But Doug Shepard has a good point. What about Vrabel?
Vrabel? I think he might have. Didn't he?
I think so.
He might have.
One of those Panthers or Eagles.
There's too many of those Super Bowls to look them up.
Either 03 or 04.
Do a search on Mike Vrabel.
I think 03 or 04. Either against the Panthers or the Eagles were the two that I'm
He,
almost
he scored, according to Wikipedia, scored receiving touchdowns in consecutive Super Bowls. Super Bowls XXXVII. So what is that?
Panthers
38
Eagles.
and 39.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel. Definitely.
Wow.
That's crazy. That is
Okay.
nuts.
Good call.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good call.
Yeah, I'm trying to rack my brain. The one Holmes caught, wasn't it at the end of the game to win the game for the
Mhm.
Steelers? Was
Yes.
that the deal? Yeah, that was a big one. I don't know if he caught another one in that game or not, but that was huge. That was a hell of a game too.
Yeah.
That was the one at the end of the first half. Didn't they have the 2-point conversion or the kick was blocked or something? And what you had were 11 guys on one side selling out to get that ball 98 yards the other direction, and 11 guys on the kicking team selling out to make sure that it didn't happen. That was one hell of a football play.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
every
Harrison.
guy on that field was straining to stop that play or help. Was it Harrison get the ball to the end zone? And didn't he come up like 3, 4, 5 yards short or something? It was nuts.
That was would have been a Kent State touchdown in the Super Bowl by James Harrison.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman took care of those.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was a hell of a play. That's one of my favorite plays. You had 11 millionaires on one side and 11 on the other side, giving all maximum effort. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, David, I was going to go to this too. Matt Snell played at Ohio State. So there you've got your Super Bowl III touchdown as well.
I got another one for you guys. So Super Bowl.
Matt Snell, did he score in Super Bowl III?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
My Snell and my Matty.
I should start jotting these guys down. Snell, Holmes, etc.
Super Bowl 31, a Buckeye scored.
Well, Archie Griffin played in the one for the Bengals. I don't know that he scored. I know he fumbled in that game, but
yeah.
I was just looking to see if Terry Glenn had scored in any of his. He did not score in Super Bowl 31. Keith Byers did.
Whoa!
Yes, Patriots, Packers. Yes. On a pass reception, right?
Yep.
Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe threw 4 interceptions in that game.
Yeah. 2 TDs, 4 picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty standard Drew Bledsoe kind of stuff.
Which one was that?
That was the Packers win over the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Brett Favre. Will not mention who won the MVP of that game.
Oh, that's pre-Brady.
Yeah.
Right?
96 season.
Okay. Yeah, pre-Brady.
Snell, Vrabel, Holmes, Byers. There was somebody else in there I missed.
Eddie George.
Okay, there's 5. Terry Glenn. I thought he had a good Super Bowl, though, but he didn't score.
He was 4 for 62 with the long of 44.
Did Dobbins play in one with Baltimore, perhaps?
They haven't made it. They keep tripping up.
So banged up. Carlos Hyde with the Niners, perhaps?
I don't recall, but it's possible. Sure.
I'm just going through running backs in my mind that, from that era.
Yeah, I'm tapped out. I'm just scrolling through the Super Bowls, and
yeah, we've probably
hit them
pretty much the limit, unless there's somebody on defense that did something. But obviously, that only happens about once every 3 or 4 years.
We'll look up Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, that's a good guess, but I'm almost positive during those 3 Super Bowls for Miami that Paul Warfield did not score. consider that Bob Greasy, one of those Super Bowls, went 6 for 7. They only threw 7 passes. And, they show the Warfield catch down the middle against the Vikings from about 8 different angles to make it look like, he had these prolific catches. And it's like he caught like one pass for, like 25 yards. But I'm almost positive Warfield did not score. The Dolphins only scored 3 points against the Cowboys. So obviously not that game. It's the only non-touchdown game in Super Bowl history from a particular team. And then they beat the Redskins 14-7, and then they beat the Vikings 24-7. I don't think so, but I might be missing.
I'm looking it up right now. I
don't think he did. I think that was all Zonka and Kick, and Howard Twilley scored a Super Bowl touchdown for the Dolphins.
Warfield.
He just passed away this past week.
No Warfield.
Yeah.
He did have, let's see, Miami, as my dad would say. 2 catches for 33 yards. They only completed 6 passes. Bob Greasy, 6 of 7 for 73 yards. Yep.
Yeah, 8 for 11, the other Super Bowl that they won. So, yeah, ground and pound. No Steelers other than Santonio Holmes through all or Cowboys, Buckeyes.
How about
all right.
Ron Springs for the Cowboys?
That's a good call right there. Hang on.
I don't know.
I don't think he did.
Unlikely.
I can't remember any. And most of his best years were right after he played in the Super Bowl, but he was more of an 80s guy. Yeah. And they made their last Super Bowl in 79 under Landry. But he played and did pretty well.
Yeah.
Hey, let's not forget Joe Burrow threw a touchdown.
Yeah, we can appropriate him, or what is it? What is it they say when you? What's the word I'm looking for?
You got
cultural misappropriation.
We can appropriate him.
Yes, some great ones. Curtis Samuel. Who's he playing for?
Buffalo now.
Oh,
is he Buffalo or?
Mm-hmm.
He was with Washington.
Oh, David. Good job. Pete Johnson.
Oh.
Cincinnati against San Francisco, 81. That would be his one Super Bowl appearance. I know he got stopped at the goal line about 3 times in a row because that's one of the greatest goal line stands in Super Bowl history. But I think he might have scored. Cincinnati scored 3 touchdowns. I know Dan Ross had 1. I think they might have ran for the other ones.
Ken Anderson, 5-yard run. Dan Ross, 4-yard reception. Ross, 3-yard reception. That was it.
Good try, David. I thought you might have had one there. Pete Johnson came like that close, like 3 consecutive carries of scoring a touchdown in that Super Bowl. He kept getting stopped at the goal line.
14 carries for 36 yards. Kenny Anderson, 25 of 34 for 300 with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
The pride of August.
They were this close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they made a nice comeback. They were down 20-0 at half.
Yep.
And like you say, Archie Griffin fumbled a kickoff, I believe.
Yeah.
Jake Ballard, where is he? Or where was he?
He was with the Giants.
Yeah, I don't think he scored a touchdown against the Patriots.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah.
He did not.
Did he catch a pass?
I was just looking at the let's see. Which one?
He would have been in the second one because he was still with the Buckeyes in 2007.
No, but Aaron Hernandez scored in that game.
Jake Ballard, 2 catches for 10 yards in the one against New England and Indianapolis.
He contributed.
Yeah. So he was there. Nick Vannett, would he have played in the one for Seattle or in one for Seattle? I don't know. He's still banging around the league, Nick Vannett, by the way. I believe. I don't know. We don't have to worry about Zeke.
No.
Isn't that funny that the Cowboys, are just going to keep pressing right along, just as if nothing ever happened. And, the world champions are in their division. And yet, if I could use the word, I would use it. The bleeping Cowboys are on national TV every other week. But, man, is there a franchise that they make a bigger deal about that has done less than nothing for the last 30 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
no doubt about that.
Kids one day are going to ask, Dad, why are they on Sunday Night Football this week, then Monday Night Football the week after that, take a week off on Thursday Night Football, and then they're also in the Thanksgiving game and the Christmas game? Why are they featured like 7 times? Believe me, son, I wish I could tell you. They just play in Dallas, Texas. That's all we really know about it, because they really haven't done anything really since the first Bush presidency, maybe. I don't know. The Clinton presidency, I suppose.
Clinton. Yeah,
Clinton presidency.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
But what a time. What a time.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here. And we'll see you next week, of course, most likely Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Tony, what's going on with you this week?
We did just drop a podcast a couple days ago, Buckeye Weekly episode, about the Jim Tressel thing and about Keenan Bailey going to co-OC the report there. And then, I did drop a piece yesterday on Max Clare, looking at the new Ohio State tight end from Purdue. Grabbed a bunch of clips from his game against Notre Dame, his game against Ohio State, and his game against Illinois, looking at his pass catching, his run blocking, so a bunch of clips there. So you can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Steve.
Well, had some bad news to report today with the passing of Jim Karsatos, the quarterback on those 85 and 86 Ohio State teams. Threw the ball to Mike Lanise and Chris Carter and won the Big Ten championship. They were 0-2 in 1986. They won the next 9 games, lost to Michigan 26-24 in one of the most bitter defeats, in Ohio State history. Jim Harbaugh predicted the victory and delivered it. And then they rode off in the sunset with the Texas A&M win in the Cotton Bowl. It was on social media Sunday night that he had passed away. And so I started asking around about it. And usually Ohio State will confirm something like this, but they really never got any kind of a report from a family member or, a trusted source. It was never published, in a newspaper or anything, or wasn't widely circulated what had happened. He'd been living in California the last few years and had some heart problems, was hospitalized, 61 years old. And I confirmed it with one of his former teammates, who is a very prominent person about town, who is about 105% trustworthy, and then also confirmed it with a extended family member who is very close to the situation as well. So I felt that I had enough to go on. There are posts on his Facebook page, people with memories and condolences, and just a sad day, because Jim was a really good guy and did a lot to help a lot of people in Central Ohio, charitable causes, very active with Children's Hospital and different things in his after his playing time. And of course, he was on the radio with the Ohio State Network for probably 10 or 15 years as well, up through the mid 2000s, I believe. So sad news to report there. Jim's a good guy, and thoughts, prayers go out to his family. He leaves 3 adult sons, and all of his former teammates and his friends, both in Columbus and California, that really cared for him. So that was something that I posted today, and don't take any great excitement in posting news like that. Certainly, that's the last story you want to ever write is something about somebody's passing. But on to a happier topic tonight. It'll be Ohio State versus Washington. 8:30 p.m. start at the Shot on a weeknight. I'm sure there'll be about 5,800 people there for that. Again, we can thank these great denizens of college athletics for all this in the name of progress to bring a Pac-12 team into the Big Ten. You can't start the game until at least 5:30 local time in Washington, so those people have a fighting chance to get home off the 5 and get to wherever they need to be in Tacoma and Seattle to watch that game on the Big Ten, watch their 500 Washington basketball team play Ohio State. Must win for Ohio State and its NCAA hopes. 3-game homestand. They play Michigan, which just knocked off Purdue, and that'll be on my network, CBS, on Sunday at 1 p.m. Don't miss it. So two must-win games for the Buckeyes, Washington and rival Michigan up this week.
Poor timing on my part, but I clicked the stats page as soon as Steve said his last word about Jim Karsatos, and certainly not to reduce anyone to a stat line, but
no.
This is an Ohio State football show, but it is obviously Jim Karsatos and a guy that
I want to point out, if I can, that yardage total in 85, 2,100 yards, was the second most ever in a season at Ohio State. Art Schlichter had gone for 2,300, I believe, in 1981, which was his senior year. And that, believe it or not, that completion percentage number, 62%, was the single season record for Ohio State at the time. And think about that. They were only throwing 5 or 10 passes a game for a lot of the Woody Hayes era, maybe 100 passes on the season. And they were lucky to complete half of them. I mean, it was really, really archaic. And Art Schlichter, Mike Tomczak, and Jim Karsatos and Earl Bruce, dragged Ohio State into the modern era. Glenn Mason was part of it as well. And Jim Tressel, I believe, would have been Jim's quarterback's coach at least in 84, maybe in 85. I think 86, he may have gone off and become the coach at Youngstown State by 86, I think. So, yeah, he was there 15 years, and 2000 would have been his last year. So, he was his quarterback's coach in 85 when, if Keith Byers is there, he was in and out of the lineup in 85 because of the foot injury. If he's 1984 Keith Byers, if you copy and paste that into 1985, I don't think anybody beats that team. So, yeah, it was those were the times, man. They beat number 1 Iowa. He threw for 151 yards. It was pouring down rain. And, just a 22-13 Chuck Long, Iowa, Hayden Fry down to defeat.
Yeah, that team gets forgotten to a large extent, but they were 8-1 and top 5 in the country and headed toward a Big Ten championship. And Wisconsin came in, an under 500 team, pulled off an upset, I believe 12-7.
Yep.
The score that comes to mind. And then
that was
Karsatos gave the Buckeyes some life the next week. They went to Michigan. It was a hotly contested first half. They had a lead, but then they fell behind. They got hit with a long touchdown pass by Harbaugh. It was 20-10, and he threw one up for Chris Carter that he made a remarkable catch in the end zone, like a 50-yard bomb, to make it 20-17 with about 3 or 4 minutes left. And then Michigan scored, though, again to seal the win. But then they marched on to a bowl victory against BYU. And again, Steve outlined what happened in 86, which I thought was a remarkable season because by the end of the year, I thought they were one of the best teams in college football after they ripped off the 9 straight wins and lost to Michigan, of course, on a 45-yard field goal miss at the gun. Pretty
Jamie
much
Morris, 200 yards. Chris Spielman had 29 tackles that day. And Jamie Morris, probably tackling Jamie Morris on most of them. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. That's sad news. Didn't like to hear that, but thank you for catching us up on that. Steve, appreciate you being here. Tony, you as well. You guys deliver every week. And again, follow Tony on BuckeyeHuddle.com and the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, everyone. Steve at Bucknuts247 Sports, and we will see you back here next week.